Hey guys, Stephanie here with the Aeroponic Tower channel, and today is seed starting day. So today I'm going to be planting things that I'm growing indoors for the winter, and I get that question a lot. So I thought I would just take you guys along because today I'm doing quite a few things. I have some things already in the towers that will transition into the garage. There's also a lot of things past their prime and I just want a fresh start. We are going to have 3 days of hard freeze this week, so it is time to get the towers transitioned over and into the garage and start the winter growing season. And at the end of this video, I'm going to be showing you guys the new Tower Garden product called the Germinator. And it is a new product that Tower Garden came out with that is a seed starting growing station. If you guys have been following me for a while, you know that I am really big on promoting setting up a good seed starting station, because this is what's going to truly save us money at the grocery store and give us food freedom. I have a just plethora of seeds here that we're gonna start. Lots of different varieties. These are things you can't find easily at the grocery store, if at all. So being able to start your own seeds and turn your towers over quickly and grow a large variety of food is what's really going to add a lot of diversity to your gardens, your diet, your taste buds, and all the things. Now, the irony of all of this is that it's really, really hot today. It's like I'm burning up in this garage, but that's all right. We're gonna get started on our winter garden. All of this information is actually going to be in my ebook, which will hopefully be out soon. It's just taking me a long time. I'm just trying to make it super detailed, but in there I'm going to put down a breakdown of, you know, how many seeds and the type of things I grow and the things that don't do well in a tower and all of that. So you have that. So this is not an exhaustive list of everything I grow, but this will give you a good idea of what I grow in the winter and show you how I start these particular seedlings. So wait for the end of this video if you want to see the new Germinator from Tower Garden. I feel like they did a great job, especially addressing the light issue, which is really the most important part of a seed station, is quality lights that are going to do the job and give our plants everything they need. So I will show you guys that at the end of the video. But let's get started. And I'm not exactly sure how many of these trays I'm going to start, but these are the trays that I recommend, and I have links to everything I'm going to talk about in the description below. And I like it because we can start smaller sections, which just makes it easier to manage the plants, and then things aren't shading each other out. Now, you don't have to do 12, and sometimes I find it's best to only do 6 if the plants need a little bit more room. Like if it's a squatty cabbage or something that's really leafy like lettuce that can branch out and shade other seed pods. Oh, there's an ant. Spider. Then you might only want to do 6 at a time. Or if you only need like 3 lettuce plants, you can do 3 in this tray and that's fine. The thing with these trays is that we can put them on our grow station, on the heat mat. They have a little dome. This doesn't have the little stopper on the top. And this allows us to create the greenhouse effect so that we have better germination. Couple of things I want to address. One thing, in a seed starting video that I filmed almost a year ago, somehow I did the math wrong and said ROCKWOOL was 2 cents per ROCKWOOL, and that is incorrect. I have no idea where I got that math from. There's no telling. Math is not my strong suit. I remember calculating it and obviously did something wrong, and these videos do age in time and things, especially over the last 2 years, inflation has been a pretty significant increase on almost everything in the world. But right now, as to date, which is what, October 2023, these, if you buy them in bulk, you can get them down to about 8 cents a ROCKWOOL. And then if you're buying just sheets of 98 from Tower Garden, I think they're like 11 cents. But don't hold me to that. Definitely check the details and back up everything I say, because I'm human and I make mistakes, obviously. Also, I garden quite differently than a lot of people, and so in no way am I ever saying like this is the only way that works. There's lots of different ways to garden. There's lots of different ways to accomplish growing food. This is just the way I do it, and that's what I'm sharing, because that's all I know how to share, is what works for me and how I'm growing my food. Because when you see this, this is real life. This is me documenting the actual food we plan to grow. Seed starting is my absolute favorite task. There's so much hope. It reminds me of like when you go to the farmer's market or a health food store and you're putting all that produce, and there's just so much hope of all the amazing meals, and you feel healthier just purchasing that stuff, knowing you're going to be making good choices. I feel that way about seed starting. This is a really exciting time for me because I can envision like all of this becoming meals for us and all the juicing I'm going to be able to do. So I really, really love seed starting days. It's a great task on super hot days or when the weather's not great. So here's our domes. I also have these 2 trays right here. So I started some seeds and I went out of town and I left my heat mats on a little bit hotter because it was super cold when I left, and then it got really warm when I was out of town and they got too hot. And I always say if your seeds have failed, then you need to check, was it too hot, too cold, too wet, too dry, bad water, bad seeds, bad rock wool, you know, was it an issue with the products you used? And I originally thought, oh, it must be this tray right here, for example, nothing sprouted. And my original thought was either bad seeds because none of them came up, they need more time, which is obviously an option as well. Some things can take up to 3 weeks, and this may be a seed variety. I didn't label them, so I don't know how to tell. Also, before I move on, I'm going to put a link to my seed starting PDF page for you guys if you want to download that for free. And it's just a chart so you can label on here, and I teach this in my course that will be launching soon. It's a master's course, so I go over everything I can possibly think of. So it's a great compilation of my experience with growing and showing you guys firsthand because I've been filming it for a while with my actual plants that I'm growing. But I recommend writing numbers on here. So right now we have 4 rows this way. So you could do 1, 2, 3, 4. Or if you wanted to do it this way, you could do 1, 2, 3. And then on the chart, you can map out what you put in that spot. And even if you just had 3 in here, just stick them on the row where you have 1. And you could say those are cilantro. Or if you had 3 different things in here, row 1 could be cilantro, row 2 could be a basil, row 3 could be a crisp head lettuce, whatever you're growing, and it helps you to track. I have found it's very unsuccessful to try and put labels inside with your plants. Reason being, you can't put the dome on. Most of them are too tall. Now, the ones that come with these trays are here, and they are the right height because they came with the trays, and they do fit, but that's just taking up a lot of space. I feel like it's not really functional, and most people end up trying to label things with stickers, and the labeling's always been a problem. I have found the best way is just label your trays 1, 2, 3, 4. If you've got more trays, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and draw it out on the chart, and that makes it easier to track it. So I will put a link to that below. It came out of, it's a sheet out of my garden planner. I actually have a garden planner that is live on my website that you can purchase. It's downloadable, and I'm working on some print options right now, so you can get it in print. I made it printer friendly. The only color portions are the front and the back so that it doesn't, you know, cost a fortune to get this thing printed. And it's a year-long journaling guide, and it has some incredible things in it, so go check that out. But it's set up to help you garden the way that I do and track your food in a way that you start to see patterns, because that's where another part of your success will come from, is experience. We have to get 1% better every time we do something, and by tracking, you know, how long did these things take to germinate? How long did they take to grow? And it changes throughout the seasons, and starting to, you know, journal those and write those down, you'll be able to see the patterns, and you'll have your notes. And so when you go to do your kohlrabi in the spring, you'll know it grows different than it does in the winter or in the fall. I'll put a link to that planner below as well. I'm really excited about it. It's very detailed. I'm always open for suggestions, so if there's anything in there that I didn't include that you think is a good idea to add, please drop me a note in the comments or on my email, because I would love to tweak it to make it the most beneficial for you guys growing. And really the key with the year is that we can see those patterns. So if you decide to download it, you know, commit to filling it out, and that will help you to really become a master at growing on your tower garden. Growing on a tower garden is easy. Growing advanced foods on a tower garden gets more hard. And what I mean by that is when you buy your tower garden, you're gonna get seeds like Swiss chard and lettuce and kale. Those are easier things to grow. You're gonna have a lot of success with those. But if you wanna start to branch off into celeries and cabbages and tomatoes and growing year round and making sure you're really replacing a lot of the grocery store, that is definitely a little bit more of an advanced skill. Not hard, not impossible. But we definitely want to work on our tools and our skills to get better at that, and that is what the garden planner is set up to do, just to help you consistently become a better gardener throughout the year. So I have these 2 trays. I was originally saying was that these are either a slow germinating seed or the seeds were bad because nothing came up. But then when I went and touched the ROCKWOOL, it was actually really hot to the touch. And so what I think happened was it got way too hot. Too hot, too cold, too wet, too dry are typically the main culprits of failed germination, and feeling your ROCKWOOL and it's hot to the touch is definitely something that would cause failure in germination. So I'm gonna restart these. And then I had a couple of singles throughout all my other trays that didn't germinate, so I pulled those out. You can see they're kind of different shapes because I ripped them apart. And with doing something like this, because I already have vermiculite in them, whatever's in them could still sprout. So I just want to put something simple in these that I know is fail-proof. And let's see what we have that's pretty fail-proof. Okay. So what I'm gonna do is here I have some arugula sprouting seeds. And if you've been following me for a while, you know that if I'm going to heavily seed a ROCKWOOL for the baby greens extension, I like to, or even on your regular grow ports, you can do this. I like to heavily seed my ROCKWOOL so that they come up super fast. I get this amazing bouquet of delicate, tasty greens like arugula baby greens, and then I take it out and start over. And so I'm gonna take a hefty pinch. I'm gonna fill the whole bottom of this ROCKWOOL with about 3 layers of arugula seeds. When you're doing lettuce seeds, I recommend just to fill the bottom evenly, where you're just covering the little opening inside the ROCKWOOL with just a thin layer of lettuce seeds, because lettuce seeds can get too jammed up if you do too many. With arugula, that's not the case. I found it best to do a hefty pinch that's about 3 layers of seeds deep. And I love arugula baby green salads. I also will let it get bigger sometimes to juice. So we're gonna do a whole tray of these because I go through a lot of arugula. I'm putting it right on top of the vermiculite that's already in there. I'm not super worried about that. And because I know arugula is an easy sprout seed for me, I don't have any fill rates with arugula, especially when I'm adding this many seeds like this. So I'm just topping it off with a little extra layer, and that's it. I'm gonna put my vermiculite in. Definitely invest in sprouting seeds. This one was from Country Creek Acres. I'm not familiar with them. I have now switched to True Leaf, and I have a link to these below because they're GMO free, organic seeds, very high quality, very affordable when you're buying them as germination seeds, and they have just a very impressive variety of choices. Like Lola Rosa is one of my favorite lettuce to grow as baby greens, and they have that. They have the Mizunas and all the things. So highly recommend those. There'll be a link below to this. All right, so we have that done, and we're gonna top it off with vermiculite, just a light sprinkle. Make sure I don't see any of the seeds. And this one's ready to go on our grow station. So this is Tower Gardens Swiss chard. They are actually changing seed providers, and I believe they said they're gonna go with Victory Seed, and super excited about that. I love Victory seeds. So these, the way Swiss chard works is it's in a little encapsulated case. And if you're familiar with what we call pelleted seeds. A pelleted seed is when a seed's super small, like a carrot or a lettuce. People who are farming or doing market gardens, they'll purchase those seeds that are encapsulated in a little bit of clay because it makes them easier to see, so you can line up your gardens and not have any waste and not have to go back and thin things out. Nature kind of does that with a Swiss chard seed. So inside these little balls, there's actually more than one seed. I don't remember how many it can be. I think it's like 6 to 10 seeds, but don't hold me to that. But there's more than one seed inside these little clusters, these like naturally pelleted balls. I rarely have ever had one become more than one plant. For me, it's like one little pelleted seed becomes one plant. But if you were to plant one seed and end up with 4 plants or 3 plants or 2 plants, that is what's happened. With Swiss chard, I just treat it as if it's one seed, and if I need to go thin later, I will. I'm going to put 4 to 6 seeds in each one. I like to do them a little bit dense like that. And 1, 2, 3, 4. They're pretty hardy and have a pretty fail-proof germination rate. I have just found they can handle having 4 to 6 plants growing out of one grow port totally fine, and it gives us more Swiss chard. It also allows some to get bigger because this is a mixed blend. This is different colors, and sometimes like the golden ones get bigger than some of the smaller colored ones. And so this allows me to have some that I can allow to get larger in the leaves and then eat some of the smaller leaves off the sides. So I'm gonna go ahead and cover the ones that I planted so I don't forget what where I put things in the ROCKWOOL. And then I'm gonna pick some other easy things that are no or fail proof. Mizuna. It's a mustard green. And I like to do these as baby greens. These I now buy at True Leaf in bulk in the sprouting seed because I add so many to each ROCKWOOL, but I had some that I wanted to use up. I'm gonna do about 15 seeds per ROCKWOOL with this one. We'll do 3 of those. 10 to 15 seeds, not perfect. Just the idea that we're seeding these a little bit more heavy. These do get pretty dense. One plant can be a significant amount of food, but I plan to eat these pretty young. And so that's also the difference too. If I want, I'm gonna try and say this right. I call it Chai Jai Maisai, which is not right. Chijimusai, I think is what it is. I can plant one of these seeds and have a really nice size of this plant, which I have one on my tower right now. That's amazing. Or I can plant 4 to 6 seeds and I get these smaller versions that come up really quickly and I have food faster. So you can do that with each of these. If you want to just take a few nibbles off of one plant all winter long, you can plant 1 or 2 seeds. I want to get these to pop up quickly, give me some baby greens, and then I'll do the whole process over again, because I can purchase sprouting seeds and do that, and it just makes it a little bit easier. And I just like the tenderness and the flavor of the young ones versus older plants. They can get spicy as they sit on the tower. So our next one, we're going to do Mizuna, and this is a red streaks Mizuna, and this one is a little different variety. Same thing. 4, 10, 15 seeds, not perfect science. This particular variety gets a little bit bigger, so I'm only doing a max of about 10 on this one. All right, so we have filled all of this tray with these, so I'm gonna put them off to the side, cover this with vermiculite, and we're gonna keep moving along. All right, so I talk a lot about pairing like things with like things when you're starting in trays so that everything germinates at the same time or pretty close. You don't want to put in a squash that's going to germinate and get big really quickly. With cabbage, for example, that can take as many as 10 days to sprout and can stay super small for a really long time. These are great things to grow in your seed starting station because they take weeks before they start to have size to them. And even a couple of weeks, it can be as many as 6 weeks before I put these in the tower. And then they take off really quickly. It's just those first few weeks can be really, really slow with some of these foods. So having them in that seed starting station in the Germinator by Tower Garden is really, really helpful. So let's just continue with some fast growing things and we'll finish that section. I'm gonna do more chijimusai. No idea if I'm saying that right. 4 to 6 seeds per ROCKWOOL. There's a few things I want to grow that I don't have seeds for, so I need to place an order. So be on the lookout for more seed starting what I'm growing indoors videos, because this is not all of it. I'm going to do my Mabuna. If you've been here a while, you know I'm a huge fan of Mabuna. And we're going to use up this whole package. With the Mabuna, I like to heavily seed these at about 15. Otherwise, they get a little bit leggy. And again, I'm eating these as baby greens. So just doing about 15 seeds per ROCKWOOL. Actually, I'm making it about 20 seeds because I want to use all these up. And there we go. Okay, so I got one section left. I think I'm just going to start a bib lettuce. And I have found lettuce grown indoors grows slower and it gets amazing and big, but it takes a little bit longer. So I'm going to go ahead and put 2 seeds because I have found there's room for 2 when you're trying to grow a head of lettuce. It's similar to turnips and beets. They sort of like spread out and find their own spot. So 2 do really well. More than that, they start to turn into just baby greens. So 2 is sort of my max. There's that spider again. Go away. Cover with vermiculite. And we're moving along. All right, so I'm going to work on some of my priorities just in case we run out of trays. I have more, but I could run out of time and trays. So one thing I definitely want is kohlrabi. And I pulled these out because I want to talk about the different varieties. I grew a lot of this purple last year and it grows amazing. But the leaves got super large when indoors, and that can happen when you're growing under artificial light and it's a little bit cooler. My turnip leaves tend to get bigger, so I've decided to switch to this delicacy white because it has smaller leaves. So I'm super excited to try this one. With kohlrabi, you can do 1 or 2 seeds per ROCKWOOL. You don't want to go over that or they'll start to shade each other out and have problems. 2 look amazing and have done really well for me in the past because it's similar to the heads of lettuce. One goes to the right, one goes to the left. They seem to find a good balance of sharing a grow port when I do 2. If only 1 seed comes up, I still get a beautiful kohlrabi as well, so I don't have to do any thinning. You can seed 3 or 4 and then thin them. I am not going to do that because I'm not labeling these, and these brassicas all look the same. So kohlrabi is going to look like cabbage and collards and kale for the first few weeks, and I won't be able to tell the difference to know to thin them for a while. All right, so we did 7 of those, and I'm going to cover them with ROCKWOOL so I don't forget which ones I've seeded. And the other thing I'm going to do in this tray is this purple cabbage. So cabbage like this, grown indoors, this is like your traditional head of cabbage. It's not going to produce a cabbage head very well. I've had one do it. I have a reel of one that everybody thinks looks like that movie Seymour. Feed Me Seymour, whatever that movie was. And it does, it's so funny. But it's not the norm. They tend to just get really big leaves and they take a really long time and they don't turn into a cabbage head. Now for me that's okay because I don't need the head, I need the greens of the cabbage are what are important to me. So what I'm going to do is seed these a little bit heavier and use them as cabbage greens, and just know I'm not trying to get a cabbage head out of them. And then I'll harvest the whole thing. I'll eat greens off of this probably all winter. At some point the plant will get really big and I'll decide that it's time to take it out and start over. But I'm going to seed more than one and know that this is leaf cabbage instead of a cabbage head when growing indoors. But purple cabbage is really important to my diet. I love to make wraps. You can cook these and stuff them, so many things. So I'm going to do 6 cabbage seeds. I would say 4 to 6 is a safe bet. You don't want to go any heavier than that because you can start to stunt the size of the leaves, and I still want to get big leaves on these. I just don't want them to turn into a head, and I want to get more leaves. So that was 4, 5, 6. Put 5 in that one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I like to just try different numbers. But I'm not going to go over 6. Okay, so those are done. Continuing on with some of the more important things. I need celery, big time. So I am going to go with the Utah Tall from Park Seed Company. And I'm going to choose the Hadrian F1, which is a hybrid, and F1 means it's been stabilized for 1 season, meaning it's open pollinated. And if I were to only grow this variety and let them go to seed and let them cross pollinate, I would get this same variety. That's what that means. So Utah Tall does amazing on the towers, but the flavor of this one is incredible. It's squattier, and this is the Hadrian. It's squattier and not as traditional grocery store like, but the flavor is really incredible. So I'm gonna do both. And when seeding celery, celery seeds are super tiny for one, and they can be a little bit finicky when germinating them. There's some kind of creature, some kind of seed in there. I'm gonna get that out. They can be finicky to start. So instead of doing 1 microscopic seed, because I like to grow 1 celery at a time. 1 celery produces a grocery store type celery. Even when I do 2, they get squattier and bushier. So 1 is the key for me, but it's really hard to grow 1 celery plant. I would waste a lot of ROCKWOOL because germination can be sensitive and not super high. I find my germination to be about 80% with celery. My trick is to take more seeds and let them all germinate. When they get to the right size, I'll put them into my tower, usually the baby green section, and I will let them get about 5 inches tall as a bundle, and then I will take it out and pull them apart and give each individual celery its own ROCKWOOL and put it back into the tower. I have a reel on doing this that I will link in the description below if you want to see me do that. They will droop for a day or 2, and they will look like they're super sad after you pull them apart, but they bounce back up, and I've never had them failed that way. They just bounce back up and are fine. So let's heavily seed these, and I'm just gonna do a pinch. I can't even really count these, so I don't even want to tell you, but it's gonna be, that was about 8 seeds. No less than 4 is what I recommend. And then if you only wanted 1 celery plant, you could just thin them and throw away the rest. If you're just shooting for 1, then stay on the 4 side. I am actually going to do an entire tower of just celery. So I need a lot of celery. Did I go all the way to there? Yeah. These are so small, I can't even see them in here. So I am going to do mostly talls. 1, 2, 6. I did 7 heavily seeded. That was probably a minimum of 10 seeds because I would love to do the whole tower of those. Actually, I want to do an entire tower set up with baby greens of celery. How cool would that be? And do a celery cleanse where you juice celery every day. That will be a video if it works. Now these are the other ones. These are pelleted. So these have that little clay coating on them. So I don't have to do multiple seeds of this one if I didn't want to, because I can see one seed can become one celery. If you're only growing a celery at a time or two at a time, that wouldn't be very many throughout the year. You could buy these pelleted version and maybe just plant 3 and then thin them. I'm still gonna follow my model of planting about 10 of them because I wanna do that tower. And it's easy to pull these apart, so it really doesn't matter if I do 4 or 6 seeds. It's just that eventually I can pull them apart and give them their own ROCKWOOL after they sprout. All right, so we have celery done. If that works out, let's see, 10, 20, 30, 40. That's over 100 celery plants. That would be awesome. I'm thinking if I did a tower with the baby greens extension kit, I would have to alternate standard grow port, baby greens to make it work with, or my other thought is do an entire baby green section, but I may have to put something in between them just to give them a little bit more space. Haven't quite figured it out yet. I'll share as I do. I've got lots of ideas on it. All right, let's move everything we've started out so we don't double up here. All right, next most important, cilantro. I do not have any cilantro growing right now, and that's a big one for our diet. This is coriander. Coriander is cilantro after it goes to flower and produces seeds. That's what coriander is. This one's called coriander because this is a super fast growing cilantro that's going to bolt really quickly. You usually don't want that. You want a slow bolt cilantro so it doesn't go to seed, but I don't have any other seeds and I don't want to waste these, so I'm going to use them as a baby greens cilantro. So I'm going to heavily seed these. If I was doing regular cilantro to grow throughout the winter, because it's colder in this garage, it's not going to bolt super fast. I only do maybe 3 seeds max. I like to keep them pretty allow them to be their own individual plant. So 1 to 3 seeds is usually what I go for with that. But because these are gonna go to seed so fast, I'm going to seed them at about 6 to 10, let them be these baby green bouquets of cilantro, cut everything off. We'll see if they grow back if I cut them all off. They might. These also have a whole seed shell cover on them, and a lot of them are open. So even though it may look like I'm putting a significant amount in here, some of them are just seed casings. So I'm just gonna take a pinch. I'm shooting for 10. Some of these could be 15. Some of them could be 5 because of this seed casing. I don't know if you guys can see that. It's just like some of the shell popped off on some of these. Let's do one more. All right, we have cilantro. I'll keep you guys posted on this variety. I haven't done this method, but that's just gardener's experience. I know if it's a fast growing, fast bolting, heavily seed it, harvest it young. All right, what else is gonna bolt at the same time as cilantro? We'll do some endive. Endive's pretty durable and should come up about the same time. This is a frisbee endive. Endive can be pretty dense. I'm going to do 5 seeds per ROCKWOOL. I love endive. It's like lettuce, but tastier and really crispy. If you want like a crispy, firm lettuce type green, endive is the way to go. All right, these are done. Look at all this incredible food, guys. Just the hope and the excitement of, oh, I didn't put anything in that one, of what's to come with this. Just, I love it so much. I'm gonna go ahead and do 2 bib lettuce because there's one opening here. Just like before, 2 seeds will hopefully give me 2 nice shaped heads. One of those seeds wasn't that good. I could tell it was bad. So I added 3 seeds. Okay, and we're done. Definitely put the vermiculite on. Otherwise you wouldn't be able to tell. I wouldn't be able to tell because some of these seeds are so small if I had seeded them. So before I put these down on the floor, I make sure they have vermiculite. All right, let's see what's next. All right, we're gonna do our kale and then we're gonna do lettuce. So this is Premier Kale from MI Gardener. It's gigantic. It makes these huge leaves. I don't want to grow a lot of this because it shades out the towers too much. It's not really the kind of green you want to grow inside because it's so big. But at the same time, I can't help it because I really like it. So I'm going to do 2 seeds of that, and that's it. Just 1 with 2 seeds. This is my feathered frills. I love these. With kale, you really only need 1 seed per ROCKWOOL because kale can stay in your tower. You can eat off of it for a significant amount of time. I like to do 3 to 4 seeds with this variety just so it's bushier. I'm going to do the same with the Russian red kale. And I just realized I only did 1 ROCKWOOL. Of this frills, and I wanted more than that. I did 3 seeds last time. Let's try 4 in this one, 4 in that one. I'm doing 3 of each of those. And then we have our dazzling blue. This one is leggier. And yeah, it's just a little bit leggier and takes a little bit longer indoors, I found last year. So I'm going to seed these at 6 seeds. And so that's kind of what I keep. Hopefully you guys can see the pattern of what I'm doing. If it's something that's going to become its own individual plant, like a parsley, I like to do just 1 seed typically, 3 at the most. If I'm trying to get it to be a little bit denser and come and pick off of it, and not harvest the whole thing for a while, then I'm seeding it a little bit heavier if it's something that's a long-term plant, or I'm doing the opposite if I'm trying to get greens to grow really fast and take the whole plant out, I'm seeding it really heavily. So hopefully that makes sense, and it's just looking at the characteristics of the plant to determine what works best. But I was doing what, 4 on those? I'm gonna do 6 on these. Oh, I almost put it without the ROCKWOOL. That would have been bad. I mean, without the vermiculite. Okay, let's see here. Parsley. Parsley is a big one for my diet. It's slower to germinate. When I'm growing outdoors, I like 1 seed because 1 seed becomes really dense head. Too many seeds, I found that a couple of them get big and a couple of them just stay straggly and it doesn't do well. So indoors, and I made a video on this and I actually don't even remember what I was saying back then to seed last year when I did this, but I'm going to shoot for 4 seeds and see if I can't get 4 plants to do really well side by side. And the way I envision that is this is a longer term crop. It's slower to grow. I'm going to eat off of it for a while. I'm not going to be harvesting the whole thing until it's pretty big. And 4, if you look at your grow port, that should be able to give us one like north, south, east, west, where they fill in really nicely. That's the goal with that. Okay. I'm going to plant quite a few of these. Parsley is a big part of my diet, and I like to juice it. And I only have 2 going on the towers right now, so I definitely have a gap. So I'm gonna do a whole tray of these actually. Okay. We need more trays. All right, I've got my ROCKWOOL in there. I'm gonna go put water in these, let them soak. We like to soak them for 20 minutes, so I'll be back. All right, guys, and as promised, I said I would show you the Germinator by Tower Garden. So let's open this up. It's got instructions. I peeked at this already. A convention. I went to the Juice Plus Live convention. It was amazing. So in here we have a heat mat and just standard heat mat. It's got some information on it, branded by Tower Garden. Tells you germination chart on here. Lettuce should be about 3 days, endive 4 days. These can be, you know, hit or miss, but it gives you an idea. So, you know, if your lettuce isn't up after 7 days, we've got a germination of 3. I'd say 3 is kind of small, kind of short, but that's how these trays work. They're like the best case scenario. But then you can gauge like 2 weeks and it's not up, something's wrong. It's going to tell you your temps stay in the 70 to 85 range. Yeah, awesome. All right, and then we also have our cord for our light and the actual light here with the legs, and that is what I really love the most. I'm a huge fan of tabletop light systems. So systems that you don't have to hang, that have their own legs and stay a decent distance from your seedlings. That is just what I have found to be the most successful using over the years. I use tabletop versions right now. Mine are T5s, and if you have tried to find the ones I recommend, you know they're hard to find. And they're a bulb that is going to burn out because they're not an LED bulb, the ones I use right now. So this is a nice upgrade. So let's just read about the lights here. It's designed to run 24 hours a day and is rich in both red and blue wavelengths for optimal vegetable and leafy greens growth. That is awesome. That's like really, so that is really great that you can keep it on 24 hours, so you're not gonna have to fuss with turning this thing off or on. And it's going to offer the proper light, and they're LED, so they're gonna use less power than the ones I use. The bulbs aren't gonna burn out like the ones I use, and these should be amazing. So let's head over to the seed station, get our seedlings under these. And the lights I currently use are a Fairy Morse light with a T5 bulb, and I absolutely love them. I'll continue to use those for a significant amount of time until I can't replace them again, because they are becoming harder to find. So this is just a more updated option. But if you have the Fairy Morse, definitely keep those, because they are an amazing grow light that I've had tremendous success with over the years. I love it so much. Perfect. Super excited about the Germinator. Way to go, Tower Garden. Thank you. And I will put a link to the Germinator below, and I always have a link to my Fairy Morse lights below as well. It just tends to go bad quite often. I get a lot of messages from you guys saying the link doesn't work. So this will be an option that will be more easily available. Awesome, we got it set up. So this mat's designed to stay in the 75 to 85 range. That's why it doesn't have a control on it. I have some of the control on them, and those are useful when this garage is open and I'm not temperature controlling them. You may need a temperature control one. The problem with the temperature control one is I went out of town, the weather was cold when I left, it was hot when I came back, and it got too hot. When you've got one that's gonna hold a steady temperature, you won't have that problem. But if you have a garage situation, like we leave this garage door open a lot and we're in and out, so the temperature is not stable. So if you're in a situation like that, then sometimes these can't put off enough heat to keep your seedlings at the right temperature. So that is why over the last month, I've been using my temperature gauge ones, because this garage can get really hot and really cold, and I'm just adjusting to maintain that. But throughout the winter, this is amazing because this garage will be temperature controlled, or if you have your seedling station in your house that's temperature controlled, then this is just going to get them to that ideal germination temperature rate and won't get them too hot and won't allow them to get too cold. So the light is amazing. It looks great. Let's put our seedlings in here. All right, our seed trays are ready. And I'm gonna keep them down here so that I don't get my seed packets wet. And we're gonna keep chugging along. We did our parsley, right? Yes. All right, I have green beans already that are started. I've got quite a significant amount of things. So on this last set, I want to, again, I'm gonna be starting more seeds for indoor growing. This is definitely not all of it, but there's a few things I really want to get going this round. And the one being my micro dwarf tomatoes. My micro dwarf tomatoes I learned a lesson and I wrote it, and this is going in my garden journal. And this is where that garden journal is super helpful because I won't remember this next year. And these videos are also helpful because sometimes I don't remember my own stuff that I talk about. It makes sense at the time, but it doesn't always stick in my brain when I go to do it again the next time. But the dwarf tomatoes, my hope was to start the seeds, get them to a significant size, almost fruiting, and move them in this garage. That I nailed. I put them in 6 weeks ago into the tower, and they already had good roots, and they are already fruiting, which is incredible, and they are prolifically about to fruit. We're just at the flower phase, so we're not at the making fruit phase, but that's really, really fast. The problem is we got a lot of rain, and they did not like the rain, and they have some spotting diseases on them from being too wet. And so I need to restart those. I'm not gonna pull them out. I'm gonna let them do their thing. They're gonna come in the garage. I'm hoping they will fruit. I've been taking off the diseased leaves, but I wanna get some new ones going because as soon as those start to fruit and these are ready, and these are large enough to go into the tower, I'm actually gonna pull those and put in healthy ones. With disease too, you know, people say like never put tomatoes in your compost because those diseases can spread and everything. I really don't worry about that on the towers. Like I'll take the plants out and put new ones in. I don't see the diseases spread, except for powdery mildew. I don't see them. It's not like we're in the soil and those diseases have a place to live and thrive. When you take the organic material out that it lives on, it can't just live on the tower. So from what my experience, now I'm obviously not a scientist, so I could be wrong, but I just have never had a problem with those transferring that way. So I am going to start new ones. We're going to start 2 of each of these just because I want to try all these varieties and really document how we like them. And I want 2 in each ROCKWOOL so that if they don't germinate, I can fix them. Now how I'm going to tell what these are is I'm going to fill out my chart when we're done. I don't have these labeled yet though, so I'm just gonna do them in order and do them this way. So I'm gonna do them in order and do them this way so that when I go to fill out that sheet when I'm done recording this, I'll know the first one was so-and-so. Hopefully that makes sense. So this first ROCKWOOL will be the first one. I'm gonna lay them flat, and then the second one, third, fourth, and so on. So let's give these a try. These are from Tomato, what's it called? Totally Tomato. I'll link them below. I'm not an affiliate for them. They're GMO free. And they just had a really great selection of micro dwarfs, and a lot of these are listed under container plants. or hanging baskets, I think it is. And they just have a beautiful variety. And I can see why they're listed under hanging baskets, because a lot of them are coming in at about 1.5 feet and kind of draping down a foot. They're super gorgeous. Really, really loving these. So 2 seeds per ROCKWOOL. I'm gonna line them up this way so I can go back and label these on my little handy dandy cheat sheet. Handy dandy worksheet. Micro dwarf tomatoes are different than dwarf. Dwarf are gonna get up to 4 feet. I'm actually gonna be planting a couple of dwarf as well. Micro dwarfs are gonna stay super small, but a lot of times they are bred out of flavor and texture, so their whole purpose is creating a variety that stays small at the expense of other things that we like in tomatoes. And so these are not that. These are varieties that are still going to have a lot of flavor and good texture. Hopefully, I'll keep you guys updated. I'm gonna do a whole tomato guide that I'll put together and just break down what do these taste like and all of that. But some of the ones like the orange hat and the micro tom, they do great growing. I've grown them, I grew them last year, but they aren't the most flavorful, I have found. And so last year I grew them inside and was not super impressed. And then I grew the micro tom outside the year before and it was really tough skin. This year I did grow the orange hat and they are tougher skin, but they had good flavor. I like orange tomatoes and they did have a really nice flavor to them. So I wasn't terribly disappointed with those, but these should be a lot better and way less limiting too. I like having variety. There's all sorts of tomatoes in here. Cherry tomatoes, grape tomatoes. I think there's even a Roma tomato. All right, we're gonna have 1 spot left. So I had planned on doing 2 dwarf tomato varieties. So I'm gonna get one of these started. The Walter's Fancy is a slicing yellow tomato. I really like it. So let's start 2 of those seeds. Victory seed packages are amazing. These are Mylar with a Ziploc. So these seeds will stay these seeds will stay good a lot longer than something that's in paper. So I really appreciate that about Victory seeds. All right, we have those in. I want to do 1 more dwarf, but I think I'll start that one next time. A dwarf again is going to get larger, like 3 to 4 feet, where the micro dwarfs, these varieties are all going to be about 2 by 2 feet when finished. The orange hat and the micro tom, you can keep these as tiny as like 7 inches. It's really crazy how small they can stay. So I have these in order so I can go back and label them. And I need to make sure I know where my start is. So I'm gonna put this clip on here. Actually, I'm gonna put this. So I'll know that's number 1 and I'm going this way so I can come back and label these. All right. Squash, cucumber, and zucchini. I started cucumber seeds already and they got powdery mildew before they even went in the tower. And the powdery mildew in my tower right now is a lot. Everything in there needs to go. Powdery mildew will ramp up this time of year when it's cooler out. This is a salad more cucumber. I'm gonna do 2 seeds per ROCKWOOL on these. I normally do 1, but I wanna try 2 this round. This is a garden bush pickle. This one does the best. These are all bush cucumbers from Park Seed Company. I'm gonna do 2 of those too. I'm doing 2 because indoors, I don't know. I just wanna see what it does. And then I'm gonna do a pick a bushel, 2 seeds on each one. But I decided to go ahead and start new seeds and I'm going to treat them with my powdery mildew recipe from the beginning so that I can stay on top of it. All right, guys, my memory card filled up, so obviously this video is getting long. I ended up adding the cucumbers and then these 2 squash, and those are all set. And here I started herbs, and what I said before I got cut off was I'm doing dill, and I like to do 1 dill seed, 2 at the most, because I like a dill plant. I feel like you get a significant harvest off a plant versus trying to do it like baby greens. I like them to get big. They get really big in the winter on my towers. I did those. I did fennel seed, same thing, 1 seed per ROCKWOOL. A little trick, if you accidentally get 2 seeds in there and you need to pull one out, you can use a pin is what I usually use, but this came with my trays. I get the tip wet like this, and then you can go in and fish the seed out. It's not working now because the seeds actually are wet because they've been sitting in the ROCKWOOL because I didn't realize I had stopped recording. But as long as you do it right away when the seeds are still dry, the seed will stick to the tip. So that's a little trick because I know, you know, 1 seed can be kind of tricky sometimes. I'm gonna do some chives. I'm gonna heavily seed these, just a pinch, 1, 2, 3. It's definitely over 10, maybe 10 to 15 range. And fill those all up. Do 4 of those. Love chives, especially in the winter with all the salad and everything. Just makes for great tasting food. And what other herb? Oh, radicchino. So this is more in the cabbage family, and it may not sprout at the same time as these other ones, but I definitely want to get them in because these have a long grow rate. I'm going to do 2 per ROCKWOOL, and I have never grown these on the towers, so this will be experimental. And hopefully I'll remember so that if they don't germinate right away, I'll make a note when I get off of here. All right, let's cover these. I'm gonna do 1 more tray and call it, and I'll start seeds again in another few days. Last tray. What's the most important here? A lot of lettuce. I want to do a lot of lettuce, but I actually have a lot of baby lettuce on my tower, so I think I can put that off a week. I am going to start some peppers. I really like shishito peppers to eat, so I'm going to start 2 of those plants. I don't want to do a ton of peppers this year in the garage, I don't think. This is a greenhouse sprinter pepper. I'm going to start 2 of those. I changed my mind. Just because I'm not in the mood for peppers today because my tower is exploding with peppers and I have to go manage them. So I'm in this like anti-pepper mode. But that doesn't mean I'm going to be in an anti-pepper mode in December and January. So I'm going to get over my own feelings and power through making good decisions for our home grocery store. That's what this is, placing the grocery store. Pepper. I want to look up what this Sprinter greenhouse pepper is. I don't really know what it is. And I actually don't have a great pepper selection right now because I just, again, like so many peppers out there. It was kind of off my radar. Okay, it's a red bell pepper. Tall, strong, thick skin. We're gonna do a bunch of those. I'm gonna keep it simple. Okay, so let's do, this is our last tray, guys. So I need to make smart decisions. I'm gonna do 4 more of those plants. I'm gonna do 5 more of those. That leaves me 3 openings. What do I do? I'm gonna do collard. I like to do 1 seed per ROCKWOOL. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the last 3 as collard greens. That'll give me nice greens to juice, to eat. I like to do collard wraps. We can, if they get big enough, once they get big enough, I can cut them and make cooked collard greens, or I can take lots of leaves off of each one And actually, I do want these to be a little bit fuller. I'm gonna do I'm gonna do 3 seeds per ROCKWOOL and see if I can't get them to be smaller leaves and bushier. If you do 1 plant, you can get really big leaves and a bigger, taller plant. But by doing 3, I might be able to keep them squattier and more dense. We will see. That's it. Let's cover this with vermiculite, put them on our grow station. And don't forget, close your vents, and all of these need a dome. We're creating a greenhouse effect with these. That is the whole purpose. So we need them to be nice and sealed. The soaking allows them to have enough water to put off water for a decent amount of time. And then I did get the question on my last video. I guess I didn't talk about how to water these after the fact. You're just gonna keep them moist all the time. I never have water sitting in the base or anything like that. I usually water them with this. I try to water from the bottom actually, just to keep the seeds from washing out and keep from having too much algae on the top. So I tend to water around the basin, let it have a few minutes to absorb the water, and then pour off any excess. I'm experienced enough that I know how to water them without having to typically dump any out, but it may take a few times before you figure out, how much water that is. And if there's a little bit of water in the bottom, I leave it. It's fine because it'll get used up in a day or 2. Once they have their true leaves, that's when we start to take water out of the tank and water them the same way. They're never sitting in water. They're just moist to the touch. I don't even like my ROCKWOOL to drip when I pick it up. So I can pick these up and they're super wet to the touch. They dripped just for a second. That's fine, but I don't want them pouring water out right now. And that's what I'm going for all the time. Whether they're true seeds, sprouted seeds, whatever age, that's the goal, wet to the touch. All right, guys, look at this abundance. So I'm gonna put my tomatoes on the new Germinator because I really wanna come back and track those really well. So we're gonna stick these. All right, guys, I got my seedlings on my Germinator. Now this one is set up where you can fit 3 of the trays that I like. I can stick more on here if I want to push them back and do this. And I'm probably going to do that today to start. But once they germinate, because the heat will transfer in these, and I'm about to turn the heat on this garage and get this garage temperature controlled so it's fine. But once they germinate, I'm only going to keep 3 under here at a time, so that they get optimal light and space and have everything they need to turn into those really mature seedlings that I like before they go into the tower. I just don't have enough of my seedling stations set up right now. So I need to get these set up and then I'll deal with them later. And so up here, because I have 2, these are getting a little finicky. I have 2 fairy morse lights, so I can do 2 rows at a time on this one. A lot of these are about to go into the towers later this evening, hopefully. So we will put some of these other ones up here and just get them on the heat mat the best we can. All right, and that was it. That was all of our seedlings. I can't even believe it. This light's giving me problems. That's another reason I'm excited about the Germinator. Even though I love my fairy morse, they are not designed to last. The bulbs have to be replaced, and they're actually hard to find because everybody is into LED now. Oh, I found one straggler. So what can I pull out of here? I can pull this one, put it over here. I'm gonna slide that one in there. Okay, and I'm gonna get these into a tower later tonight. Thanks for joining me, guys. I hope this helps to guide you on your journey to growing indoors and gives you some inspiration on what to grow. I will keep you updated on all this amazing food over the next few months and show you how it turns out, how we harvest it, and how we eat it too. I'm trying to share more recipes and plant-based lifestyle recipes with you guys for those that are interested. And how do you take all this food and turn it into healthy meals? This keeps us from the grocery store. This is saving us thousands of dollars a year on groceries. This is better than organic food that has the highest nutrient content, is the absolute freshest food we can put into our bodies, and is nutritionally dense, has it's fed everything it needs to be its optimal plant growth and vitality. And we get to then take all of that plant is like at its prime and has had everything it needs to be healthy. We then get to eat those within minutes of harvesting them. And that is so powerful, guys. So if you want any more information on tower gardens, make sure to look at the description below, or anything I mentioned today. There's links to all of that in the description below. Feel free to reach out. I love to talk gardening with you guys. It is my absolute passion to help people learn how to grow food year round. And thanks again for joining me on this video.